Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to On the Mic with Mike, the premier business radio program. I am your host, Mike King. I appreciate you being here with us. We're coming to you from the Mike King Biz Studio, which is the global epicenter of social enterprise business. You can follow me on social platforms, On the Mic with Mike RVA, as well as Mike King Biz. Alrighty, so I'm just a humble public servant, just trying to do my part to make the world a better place. My man Bryan Berry calls me up and says, "Hey, Mike, we got something new and exciting going on. Welcome to the program, sir."
Well, thanks for having us, Mike.
Alrighty, so tell us, we're gonna start off with, and you didn't roll solo.
I didn't roll solo.
You're not rolling solo.
No,
you brought the big dogs with you. And so, alrighty, so tell us who you are and what you do,
sure.
And then we're gonna have you introduce your guest.
Okay. Well, yeah, so I'm Bryan. For 30 years I ran an investment advisory practice in Richmond, and then a couple of years ago sold that. Hung out with Keith Reynolds.
Shout out to good for because that's where I know you from.
Yeah, you know me from Synapse. So I served as his CEO for a few years and was slowly building a career in leadership development during that time, and then separated from Synapse about a year ago. It was about 6 months after I had a pretty severe heart attack and got through that. So I've had a couple opportunities in life to have time for personal reflection with some medical issues. So that was my last time, hopefully. And then along the way, met Aaron Lee, who was already involved with leadership development. He was certified through a company called Giant Worldwide.
Okay, so shout out to our man, Jerry. Jerry Howard is part of the family.
Yep.
And he is, as well as Pastor Mark.
Pastor Mark.
We're going to shout out,
Mark Thomas. Yeah, Mark Thomas, Stephen Walker.
I forgot about Stephen Walker. You guys have got a bunch of you giant folks out there.
Yeah. Carrie Schwer, who we also know. So there's a good group of us. So anyhow, so I began talking to Aaron and Jerry about Giant Worldwide. You're probably familiar with the assessment they use called the Five Voices. Took that, fell in love with all the tools that Giant had, and decided to become certified with them and focus solely on my leadership development. And then I've been doing a lot of professional speaking along the way as well. As you know, I'm an ambassador for the United Network for Organ Sharing, being a double transplant recipient a few years ago. It's a real passion of mine to encourage folks to become donors. And part of that helps me, I think, share ways to deal with chaotic moments in life when I do leadership training or go out and speak. So I talk to people about how to avoid panic, how to make sure they just step back, take deep breaths when chaos happens. Like, for example, if you had money deposited at Silicon Valley Bank on Friday, you were hoping
the government, so they stepped in and said, "Hey, we're going to cover it," because if not, you're going to have some moments.
You're going to have some panic attacks. So, but anyhow, so that's the background for me. But I'll step aside and let Aaron talk about himself a little bit. But we are here to promote an event called LeaderCast, and we'll talk about that.
All right, Aaron, welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having us. I've been in leadership development for 5 or so years full time, and that started every stop along my career. I've got a different C word synonym to chaos. I talk about crisis. I worked with middle schoolers. Then I worked with natural disasters, and now in leadership development. And so the common theme that all of our clients have is they know why they're in business, they know the financials, but they got to work on the people side. And so I say sometimes I'm a people strategy consultant, helping people build systems to support their people in their workplace, because the organizations I've worked in, the partner organizations I've worked with, I've watched all sorts of bad examples, seen a handful of good examples. And what we're doing now, it's so much fun. It's so exciting to see people thrive, because it doesn't just impact the bottom line. It impacts people at home and in their community too.
One of the things people always talk about, they may not know what good leadership is, but they know bad leadership.
Absolutely.
And you guys want to say absolutely. How can, good leadership, some people born leaders, but you guys also develop the skills. Talk a little bit about the assessment, the Giant, that model, and for people who may not be a natural born leader, then that way they can evolve to be a better leader.
I think there are a number of things. At the basis of what we do is we try to help folks become leaders that other people want to follow, as opposed to leaders that others have to follow.
Okay.
And so it sort of starts there. And the people become more lot of people that are leaders, and they got that way because they got promoted via a title, and they're not great leaders, but hey, they've been here longer than anybody else, so they naturally just took over or were promoted when the last person left. And typically well, not typically, but a lot of times those folks have no idea how to lead anything.
No,
they've just been there. It was just inertia that took them to their leadership role. So I'll let Aaron talk a little bit more about that. But the 5 voices is just a simple tool that helps us develop a common language so we can all understand each other. Because there are some great leaders who just never speak up. But when we find out what their voice is, then we can help them use that and get them to say, no, okay, you're a nurturer. You don't often speak up, but we need you to speak up. The guys that are like me, the pioneers, we're just loud. We always think we're right. And like, we'll go through the 5 voices, I guess some, but in case pioneers, loud voices, always speak up. A lot of times we'll often do that in such a way that others won't even attempt to speak up. And so what we encourage is everyone to understand and be self-aware of where their voice is and understand the best way to use it. And oftentimes with those nurturers who are over in the corner being quiet, we need them to talk and step up.
Go.
So
one of Mike King, Bryan's here. We are talking the voices. We'll be back in just a second. We got to take a break.